Welcome to Book Club 4 Movies for the week of October 14th, everybody. I'm Ryan Miller, and it's Matt Amberg.
I'm a foghorn leghorn.
No. That was the guy trimming the hedges outside of my house right now. So if anybody hears that, that's what that is.
Well, I say that's better news than me being a foghorn, I say.
Far and above my favorite Looney Tunes character back in the day, because I never got to see him. Like, I would always hope it was an episode with Foghorn Leghorn. I didn't know his name back then, but with the chicken, the guy who talked weird.
He was one of the ones I did not love.
Really?
Yeah. He was fine. Like, he was never one that, that's funny, because I always felt like I saw him, and I didn't see more other characters I wanted to see more of, you know?
I just always had a thing for self-referential stuff, and weirdly enough, I believe I've mentioned this on the show, but the Super Mario Super Show, the guy who played King Koopa on that show, there were two of them minimum, and I still haven't looked this up, but the first guy who played it would always like address the crew and stuff like that, and I always picked up on it. Like, he was very self-aware that he was a man in a Koopa costume talking to kids. Like, and Foghorn Leghorn was always kind of the same thing. Like, I felt like, and this probably comes from, what was he a take on? W.C. Fields, maybe? No.
Actually, no.
Who was he an impression of?
Foghorn Leghorn was directly inspired by the popular character Senator Claghorn, a blustery Southern politician played by Kenny Delmar, who was a regular character on the Fred Allen Show, a popular radio show in the 1940s.
I had no idea then, never mind.
The rooster adopted many of Claghorn's catchphrases, such as, "That's a joke, I say. That's a joke, son."
That's crazy. Okay, well, he always, to me, had a kind of a self-referentiality about him, I guess. Like, when he would talk to somebody, it was always like he was talking, you know, like he was outside of the cartoon, like he knew he was a cartoon. I don't know. Hey, this is Book Club for Movies, where we talk about Looney Tunes and movies. You can watch the movie we're going to talk about this week and then talk with us about it with Twitter, Facebook, email, podcast at bookclub4movies.com. This week, you can do it with The Fog, our ongoing October Ween to the
Weening.
Weenissing.
Sounds awful. Would you like a synopsis for this movie? Let's just get
sure,
forward.
Please
okay,
go.
Here
Thank
we
you.
go. The Fog's going to come at you an hour and 29 minutes. Written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. Music by John Carpenter. Electronic realization, Dan Wyman. Director, John Carpenter. Starring Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Lee Curtis, Tom Atkins, Janet Leigh, mother of Jamie Lee, and Hal Holbrook. Here is your Book Club for Movies synopsis for The Fog. Every 100 years, the victims of a sabotage shipwreck return to the coast of Antonio Bay to find the stolen gold that built the town. Happy Centennial, Antonio Bay. I wanted it to be Antonio Banderas, but I just didn't do it.
There's no way you could do that. So The Fog, just quickly chosen by me, who realized there were two movies and knew nothing more beyond that were related by weather phenomenon.
Phenomenal.
Did that come back to bite me in the butt? We'll see. I knew nothing of this film before that. It being a John Carpenter film, I'm guessing you did.
Yeah, I mean, I knew what I was getting into.
So you've seen it before?
Yes, I've seen it before.
You knew what to expect.
I sure did.
I feel like I've said this for one other movie, and it might now be wrong, but I've never had less notes. So maybe you start, or maybe I tell you why.
No, tell me why. I look. Just tell me what your notes are, I guess, is let's go with that.
Let me just read them all off, just verbatim right here.
You might as well. I mean,
you're done with the show in 2 minutes.
I've given the entire plot of the movie, and it's basically just a whole town going, they're pirates, basically.
So the movie opens with a bearded sea captain telling a story to young kids about a ship that was tricked into crashing onto the land by a small campfire, and the ship returns every so many years?
100 years.
Okay, I know it's been 100 years since
they say it's in 100 years this is going to happen.
Okay, on April 29th or something, I think. Did I get the day right? Did I do it?
Possibly.
Not one of my notes.
It's April 21st, but
Oh, dang. Okay. So this is that day. And that story is actually, does it? It does not pick back up at the ending, right? That's just the introduction
no,
to the movie.
it's just like the framing for it.
The rest of it, we're in it. We exist in that city, Antonio Bay.
Antonio Banderas.
Still, I don't think it's working. If you can make that work by the end of the show, we might have something.
Antonio Banderas.
No. You might have to do more than saying it over and over. You might not. I guess I shouldn't put parameters on you.
Okay.
It is a classic story told slowly, is my first note. And
Sure.
I think that's a strength. Obviously, it's kept simple. And the story is compelling, actually. I don't know how much of this was told in the beginning that I just glossed over. But throughout the course, and we're going to spoil this thing, even though, can you really spoil it? No.
Not really.
There's nothing there.
It's this is not a deep film by any means.
The preacher, the father, I forget what his actual title was, of the nearby church at the time. Okay, the movie opens with the current father finding, is it a father, pastor? What is his rank?
Yeah, he's a priest.
Oh, priest. That's probably better. Finding the diary of his old grandfather, great-grandfather maybe, wherein he admits that he knew a boat was coming in with gold aboard, and he engineered the trick wherein he lit the campfire and stole the gold. And eventually we find out that he melted it down into a cross that was displayed in the church ever since.
Yeah.
If that was his goal from the beginning, it's kind of like, why did you do that anyway? you think maybe he was going to spend it or do something? I don't know.
No, I'm just going to, it's for the Lord.
Just the prestige of having the solid gold cross, I guess.
Yes.
So that being the story is actually pretty interesting. I like that. And it is a classic story. It's one of those ones that you might have actually heard around the campfire at some point.
Totally. So, yeah, no, it's this whole movie it's your basic ghost story, you know. It's the framing of the movie tells you that right at the beginning. That this is more a story for kids than for anybody else.
A fun note about that beginning actually too is that it came later. I'll save why until we get more into our overall opinions of the thing.
Okay.
But quickly we're introduced to the actors that you mentioned are pretty much the only actors in the entire film.
Basically.
And
yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis's character is a drifter who hitchhikes into a dude's car and then bed shortly thereafter.
That dude is Tom Atkins.
I'm sure he's from other things. You are far more versed in the 70s actors.
Tom Atkins has been around forever.
Actually, that's true. I probably know him from other stuff too. You're not better about knowing 70s actors. You're better about knowing actors, period. So
okay, calm down.
The actor I did actually notice from the beginning was
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, yes. Funny story about that. This is a movie that my wife watched with me for half of it, maybe. And upon Jamie Lee Curtis appearing on screen, she says to me, "She's Jamie Lee Curtis-y." And I said, "That's Jamie Lee Curtis." She's like, "Oh, look how right I was," essentially.
Yeah, and she acted with her mom.
Yeah, generally that she followed up with that too. She's like, "Wait, isn't that Jamie Lee's mom?" I was like, "Yes, that is. She's a real psycho chick." Hal Holbrook was the other guy I noticed right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know from where either. That's how bad at this I am.
Good old H. Holbrook.
H. Holbrook, as he's known.
He was in a whole bunch of I don't want to say westerns, but he's been in a ton of stuff. Like you might remember him from The Firm. He was in All the President's Men.
Into the Wild, Lincoln. This is the known for section of his IMDb. The Fog, still showing up in 4th place.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you recognize him. I recognized him.
Yeah.
And he does a great job, honestly. And again, that story wherein he tells a story about his grandfather, but done very well, compelling. He's also the guy that figures out that they want their gold back. So, okay. The Fog shows up, and it more often than not contains these dead pirates that will then kill you.
They do that. They use hooks, and I think it's real fun.
Mm-hmm. Some hooks, some swords.
Yes, some cutlasses.
To great effect. They do very stabby with the guy in the eyes.
Right.
First death we see.
Yeah.
There's a boat out at sea that is Janet Leigh's husband in the
boat
film.
at sea.
Janet Leigh's character's husband.
The boat at sea belonged to Janet Leigh.
You know what's funny? The type of music that you're singing right now is constant throughout the film. Adrienne Barbeau's character is a radio announcer and more often than not plays these kind of jazzy classics
Pretty funny.
type thing.
Yeah.
In fact, the very opening scene where the journal is discovered on a dark and stormy night, like the piece of the wall falls off out of nowhere.
It just barely misses the priest's head.
Yeah. He's playing like some jazzy standard in the background while he's discovering all this. And it might be my favorite part of the entire movie. Like the music really is kind of counter programmed or whatever you want to say for the entirety of the film. And it's still scored and there's still, in fact, a very Halloween-esque John Carpenter score throughout,
Shocker.
It's got a hook to it.
Because once again, who wrote the music? John Carpenter.
Like if you played that song to somebody and was like, what movie is this from? Like without any context, I bet half the time people would choose Halloween.
Probably.
It's just very reminiscent.
They'd be silly and wrong.
Which is fine. It's still evocative. It still works. But
it's JC.
I did think that. So I like that about the music. Other thing I liked, I found, I don't know how much this holds true. You have to tell me, where did you end up watching this? Did you stream it or did you own it already? Or did
I watched it on, I have a copy of it.
Okay. I found a remastered copy. And this is maybe one of the most gorgeous 70s movies I've seen.
Oh, that's fun.
Like definitely the cinematography is beyond competent, but also the remaster, if it's a symptom of that, just looks beautiful. It just looks perfect. Like there's no grain to it really. I don't know how much of this is taken out after the fact, how much of it was what John Carpenter shot on. So I couldn't really say, but it looks really good. Looks really good.
Yeah. I don't remember, like the copy I have is clean enough. It's not grainy or anything. So.
Looks good. And the fog is one of those things that looks good. It's very spooky.
It's
used
fun.
to great effect.
And I love that the fog is one of those things where, because I appreciate this, and I know this might sound like I don't, but I do. I appreciate when filmmakers can see ahead of time what they can do with what they have. And Carpenter was able to go, okay, so I can have this fog creep in and then we can just reverse the footage, but do it in such a way where it doesn't look like just the reversed footage.
Oh, I'm usually really sensitive to that, and I couldn't tell you that was used, actually.
Yeah, so they do that a couple of times when the fog is rolling in, like, and the reason you probably don't recognize it is because of the way, like, you don't see it. It's not like sitting on the shot. Like all of the rollback shots are very quick to scenes we've already seen. But they're just totally, it's film reversed.
The only thing I picked up on was some questionable compositing.
Oh,
where
sure.
the fog is moving way inland.
Yes.
That was kind of obvious. It's a very wide shot of a beach shoreline that they put the fog over as it goes in.
And all the flashing lights.
Huh. Did not notice the reverse shots. That's cool.
Yeah. When they're done well, they're nice. It's just so often, more often than not, they're not done well.
I'm like I said, I'm usually pretty sensitive to that. In fact, there's a shot, the opening shot where the store attendant is like sweeping up against the refrigerated lighting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's two shots. One where he takes a swig of milk or whatever it is.
Orange juice.
And then the second shot where he's sweeping up next to the closed, going into way too much detail on this. The first shot is sped up, and I did notice that. And I think it's just because it's a really long shot. Like it's sped up.
That's funny. I didn't notice it.
There is I want to say maybe 20%, depending on the software you're using to leeway, where you can speed up a clip by 20% and most people won't notice. You can also slow it down by 20%. That might be generous. 15% is probably more accurate. But so yeah, that clip itself is sped up maybe 15%. So it's just barely noticeable if you look at it. If you watched it again now, you would notice. But
well, yeah, I know, because it's definitely, you've mentioned it, so I'm definitely going to see it.
Yes, and for no reason, because it doesn't really affect the quality of the film. The quality of the film being okay. Like speaking more generally now of my final thoughts on the thing, not blown away,
Sure.
other than how it looked. and enjoying the classic story and how the music is used. Other than that, I fell asleep a couple times. That's usually on me. It probably is on me again this time. But just did not get grabbed by this thing like any of his other movies, unfortunately.
It's not one of my favorites, honestly.
Okay.
It's fine. You know, like you said, it's not great. I think, you know, for a movie that's barely an hour and a half, the fact that it's paced so poorly, I think, is one of the weird things to me. Like, I don't think the pacing is very good on the movie at all. I think
it's just slow.
Yeah.
It's just really slow.
Right. And I feel like this is a movie that he filmed and he got an hour out of and was like, that's a good movie, but I can't sell or put out an hour-long movie. It needs to be an hour and 20 minutes at minimum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think you take 20 minutes out of that movie and it's actually probably way better. Like, that's actually probably a solid little tale.
There's minimum 2 scenes in there that don't really ratchet the tension. Like, there's one where it looks beautiful, and there's some of the shots that I look at and go, wow, this is gorgeous. But it's Adrienne Barbeau, coming home and taking the long walk to her house and then taking out some of her groceries, and that's it.
Yes.
I don't know why that shot's in there.
Yeah.
Build the tension.
We're trying to establish that she lives a life,
I guess. And maybe, jokingly, you're maybe more correct than we want to be, because she is a focal point in this, in that she has the child in the movie, even though they're disconnected, and the child falls in with the hitchhiker with Jamie Lee Curtis, and that the whole rest of the group of the film, even though we don't ever see them, like, there's no introduction or anything. Like, he's just with them and becomes part of the group at some point, if I remember again.
Basically, yeah.
Maybe I dozed off. But that doesn't really forgive scenes like that. In my eyes, again, they're gorgeous, but ultimately somewhat pointless, it seems. And the most funny thing, I think, is that we're not alone. The version I got came with some extras. I had planned to watch a lot more of them, but I only got to watch one with Jamie Lee Curtis, where she was interviewed about the film recently. And it was funny because she's like, I watched the movie in preparation for this interview again. It's not my type of film. She doesn't get as into it as we are. You know, she doesn't say like it's poorly paced or anything like that. She basically just says ghost movies aren't really her thing. Like, and maybe she was just being kind, because that's also something you say when you don't want to say it's a bad film or poor filmmaking. You say, oh, it's just not for me.
Yeah. And that movie is definitely for me, just not always.
And I think that's probably more accurate. Yeah.
It's fine. It's
not bad.
It's not without its charms.
It is not bad.
It's not without its charms. But
it has many of the charms.
In terms of Carpenter films, it is definitely low on my list. I think trying to think of what it's called.
Oh, Ghosts of Mars.
No, I actually like Ghosts of Mars just fine. No. It's like his last directed movie, and it is
The Ward.
The Ward,
possibly.
Yeah, that's
what you're looking for.
Was just not very good, and I need to go back and rewatch it, because I only saw it the one time, and it was not. I kept falling asleep through that one. Like, that was a tough one, and I was bummed about it too, because I liked the concept, and it was just. But again, I need to watch it again. I need to go back.
Well, I mean, it's late era Carpenter too. I'm certain there are some, not allowances that you need to make, but you need to view the later movies in a filmmaker's repertoire in the light of their older movies. That's being generous. Otherwise, yeah, like, why would some of this be important at all? Or also, why you become familiar with a filmmaker's grammar, so to speak, like
sure.
the way they talk, the way they all that. And actually going back and looking at some of this, because I was curious about the history of it now when I saw it, because I was like, oh, this didn't knock it out of the park for me. First, The Fog was greenlit as part of a 2-picture deal with AVCO Embassy, along with the other Escape from New York.
That's right.
So this is kind of the Danny DeVito of that twin.
Are you calling it twins? The most one of the
yes,
more,
I am.
One of the more top quality Schwarzenegger flicks.
It's the Danny DeVito. It looks gorgeous.
I would call this, which Danny DeVito does look gorgeous. I would definitely call this the junior of those two movies.
It just doesn't have the oomph as Escape from New York.
Twins is basically Escape from LA with Danny DeVito. I mean, I'm sorry, Escape from New York. That's the Junior's Escape from L.A. That's the problem.
I'm lost at this point.
You know what? Junior wasn't great. Twins is awesome, and The Fog is a. What's your star number here?
No, we're not that far. Like, I got a few more.
I didn't know this could keep going.
In speaking of John Carpenter, again, a lot of what I'm going to say now doesn't have to do necessarily with The Fog.
Okay, now we're fine. We're back on track. Okay, keep going.
All right. In looking at, how this got made, how it was that 2-picture deal, I see that, from Halloween, and Assault on Precinct 13 came before Halloween, actually.
Yes.
Assault on Precinct 13, Halloween, The Fog, and I'm skipping some, but Escape from New York, The Thing, Christine, Starman, Big Trouble, like...
No, dude.
You knew this long before I did, but freaking John Carpenter, man. When we talk directors, he should have been one I threw into that list of all times.
That's
to
why
consider.
he's the one of the top horror masters, and you're neglecting Prince of Darkness and In the Mouth of Madness, both of which are part of the Apocalypse trilogy, which is freaking cool.
So yeah, this might have looked more gorgeous than was compelling.
Yeah, I agreed.
But we're not necessarily alone. And not only do we have Jamie Lee Curtis in our camp, we have John Carpenter himself. This is from Wikipedia. After viewing a rough cut of the film, Carpenter was dissatisfied with the results. Recalling the experience, Carpenter commented, "It was terrible. I had a movie that didn't work, and I knew it in my heart." This is before he recut some of it, reshot some of it, and added that opening prologue that I mentioned, where it becomes more expressly a story being told. I think that was a smart move. They also made some of it gorier. You probably thought that was a smart move, or would think that would be a smart move.
Yeah.
It's not even that much gory of a movie.
No, not at all. So
And then in the end, apparently 1/3 of the finished film is the newer footage. So I would say essentially happy with it either himself. I bet he wasn't I bet he liked the newer version better, but I bet he still wasn't 100% happy with it. No,
it doesn't sound like he was. It sounds like he tried to salvage a turd.
Yeah, we're keeping okay company, and it's not like it's not worth seeing. So in the end, did my one-off, hey, this is like The Mist. It's called The Fog. Let's do this one next week. Did that backfire on me? Not necessarily.
It kind of backfired on you, especially in comparison to The Mist.
But it's still got at least 11 stars.
Yeah. 11 stars out of 16.
Okay. Well, yeah. Pretty. All right.
It's not too bad.
Does anybody actually know how that works? Have we ever explained that I, at the end, poop out stars and then you make up out of how many, and neither of us knows what either one is going to be?
I generally assume people have figured it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't explain it then.
Okay.
That's been Book Club for Movies. I don't have any other movies to talk about again this week.
I got movies. But actually, do you want to talk about the movie that we are choosing for next week?
Oh, right. That's what we do. Yes. Sorry. You can do that. I don't know what it is. So, yes, this would be your...
I have got it. I've got it.
Did you find another weather-related?
It is not weather-related. We are moving away from the weather.
Okay.
We are going to go back to a film. This is unfortunately not streaming for free anywhere, but it is available on Amazon Prime, a few other places for the dollars. There's a little film called Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
Is this an October ween, or are we?
No. This fits in. This is a horror movie. It's totally fine.
Okay.
It's Dog Soldiers by Neil Marshall.
Oh, okay. His name sounds like I've heard it before.
He directed the most recent Hellboy.
Oh.
He directed
That's what you're going to lead with?
He directed a couple episodes of Lost in Space. He did...
the new one or the old one?
The new one.
Okay.
He did a couple of episodes of Game of Thrones. He did one of the coolest horror movies called The Descent.
Oh, okay. I've heard about that quite a bit. This is before that, it looks like.
It is. It's what got him to the ability to make The Descent. This is
all right.
It's a fun movie, man. I think it's going to be an entertaining little discussion.
I love it. I love when you pull movies out of nowhere that I've never heard of before, ever.
Yeah.
And they're good.
Dog Soldiers.
Like literally 99% of the time, they're fantastic.
I'm pretty good at movies that I like.
Got a great track record.
My track record is very tall.
Okay, Dog Soldiers next week. I'm on it. Did you though have any other additional movies to talk about?
I do. I got one
Okay.
more movie. I watched the new Suspiria this past week with the wife. Suspiria, remake of the Dario Argento film, and not really a remake, honestly, more of a reimagining. And this is one of those movies that when you say reimagining, most people kind of shudder and go, oh, it's not going to be. This is one where, boy, oh boy, just absolutely the right way to do it. Everything about it, just the right way to do it. It felt enough like the original Suspiria to where I know where it came from, but it was different enough to where I felt like this was a terrific and I don't want to say spin, but a terrific spin on it, like a terrific different perspective on the movie.
Here's everything I know about Suspiria. It's a movie.
That is, well,
and even that came later after hearing or seeing your shirt.
I forget. That's true.
In fact, I want to say you wore it when I was in Colorado and received the most compliments about it than any other piece of clothing.
Such a weird thing too. Like, it's just a bizarre thing. People do it all the time too. It's like, I don't know.
That's a good. It's a nice shirt. No, it's
a cool
very
shirt. I
eye-catching.
need to get another one because that one's getting torn.
You're wearing it right now. Did you do that on purpose?
I didn't actually.
I feel like you didn't know until I just said so.
I
right
didn't.
Now, too.
I just pulled it. It was the first thing I pulled out of the closet this morning. Honestly.
So there's that. I just now found out that it's a remake. I've heard of Dario Argento before, so I'm growing by leaps and bounds here. What? Can you give me a sentence? Can you give me an elevator pitch on the thing?
Okay, the elevator pitch for Suspiria would be a dance academy. A very talented dancer is brought to a dance academy and finds out that that dance academy is much more than just for dancers.
There's like 5 dancers? Or
there
what?
are many dancers, but they're also she starts to believe that they're a cult or something supernatural is going on, and that leads to the finale with Tilda Swinton. I mean, she's in the whole movie. She's awesome.
Tilda Swinton is the finale of any movie the moment she comes on screen is how that works out.
Right.
Yeah.
No, as soon as she came on screen, the movie basically was just one long denouement.
Ooh, again. Love it when we fit that word in.
I'd actually recommend you look up the film information on this.
Okay.
Because the differences between the two are really fascinating. And a lot of it has to do with color. And the way the remake has been made, the stark colors, it's missing some colors. Like, the film just doesn't use them. And it's really interesting because the Argento is super bright, like really heavy in that 70s, like those really, really bright colors. None of that faded brown, those earth tone crap. Mm-hmm. And yeah, and it's a great flick. They use the film uses dance obviously very heavily, and it uses it as like it's a part of the language of the film. It's a part of the growth of the character and the growth of the people around her, and understanding further and further what she's getting into and how she's falling down this rabbit hole. And and it ends in glorious, horrendous fashion as you expect it to, but also ends on kind of like it's for a movie that ends the way it does, it also ends well. Like, it ends kind of on a positive note for our main character.
Okay.
It's pretty fascinating. But again, I highly recommend read about how Luca Guadagnino, I think is his name.
Is that the new director?
Yeah.
Director of the new one?
Yeah. Look at what he did in comparison, because it's really fascinating stuff about the decisions he made to make this movie such a stark contrast, especially visually.
Cool.
Super good.
I want to say I've seen several articles about it out there already. Probably from you, actually, retweeted or something.
It's possible. I loved it, man. I loved it so much. Beth and I watched that, and we were just, at the end of it, we were both just so like, that was beautiful
Cool.
and wonderful and horrific and everything we want in a
Well,
horror
I now know enough about it to carry on a conversation at a party. So
Yeah, all
that'd
you
be great.
got to do is I'm trying to remember. There were actually a couple people in it. Mia Goth is in it. Chloe Grace Moretz is in it, and she is only in it very briefly, but it's fantastic where she fits in. All of the score was done by Tom York from Radiohead. Yeah. In any case, it's a good movie. It's a fun movie about witchcraft and using dance for variety of exploratory exploratory functions for the character. It's pretty great.
Cool. I will look up some of the literature on it. You have correctly identified me as somebody that reads about movies he may never watch.
No, this has so many different things about the themes and all that. So,
all right, cool. Suspiria, probably the second time we've talked about it. I feel like
Could've.
at least.
I don't know. Anything is
and
possible.
but not the last. So
and I will tease this.
Tease it.
I'm going to give you a little teaser because I did see another movie this week, but I don't want to talk about it until you potentially see it this week.
That's right. I forgot. Yeah, this wouldn't be. I guess we'd have to save it until after Octoberween, anyways. Technically, really.
I don't think so. I think this is we could do a secondary portion of a show with Dog Soldier. We'll see.
Okay. You don't want to do a whole show on this thing?
Oh man, we might. I don't know. You're
Let's wait until I see it. Yeah,
you're
yeah.
gonna
Okay.
need to see it because there are. I could go either.
And now
way
let's
with
just stop talking about it and never tell anybody
Yes.
else what it is.
It's Joker, by the way. It's Joker. So get ready for that sometime in the future of nearness. Podcast at bookclubformovies.com.
So come back next week for, again, Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldier. That's the way
said
you want
that
to say
like
about
it's
a Halloween movie, about a horror
Yeah.
movie. Dog Soldiers.
Soldier next week on bookclubformovies.com.
Goodbye.